Welcome to the Shake Up Podcast. I'm your host and co-founder of Mr. Consistent, Jarrad Bell. This is a podcast where we invite friends of the brand into our studio. We get to know their story a little bit better. We chat all things business, culture and marketing, all while shaking up a few cocktails. This week on the Shake Up Podcast, our featured guest is someone who has grown from warehouse assistant to junior graphic designer within a few short months, and she is well and truly a lovable part of our Mr. Consistent family. There's no one more perfect for the project than the one we're about to talk about. The Mr. Consistent Label for Love had one goal: stand up, stand out, and be proud. With Red being a part of the Lgbtq+ community, it's amazing to see her vision and knowledge come to life and in the form of this campaign. So let's rip into this episode and let Red tell us about her inspiration, her story, and why it is so important for us to stand up, stand out, and be proud. Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Shake Up Podcast. Today is a little bit different. We have a guest that actually works in our business and is a part of the LGBTQ+ community. And also, she designed this label. The margarita that we're all drinking, that we're all loving, with this beautiful label that she's designed. She's responsible for it, Ed. I called you Ed.
Oh, hi, I'm Ed now.
Always going to say, because I always like, what? Because you obviously, everyone calls you Red.
Red, yeah.
But then I'm always like, do you want to be called, I'm your boss, so should I call you Jess or Jessie?
No,
or
even
Red?
My family call me Red.
Red?
Yeah, like
Red.
Everyone calls me Red.
On Instagram, your handle is that_ranger_chick.
Yeah, you can see why Red is a real original
Red's a real
nickname.
original nickname. Red, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, cool. So I am Red. I'm the junior graphic designer here at Mr. Consistent. Part of the LGBTQ+ community. I have only fairly recently got into graphic design. And yeah, absolutely loving it and having the best time. And so creating something like this is just
How long have you been here now? Like 4 or 5 months? Like my business partners have worked with you before, and you kind of came in the warehouse and you were mucking around with graphic design. You're like, hey, can you take a look at my stuff? And like started sending me stuff, and I was like, you know what? I got some shit you could probably have a go at. And then it kind of just developed into like you pretty much handle all the graphic design now. Like I still do bits and pieces, and we talk and collaborate every day, but you're responsible for probably 95% of the stuff that everyone sees now, which is pretty cool.
It's pretty
For
amazing.
You and me.
Yeah. You're like, sweet, stuff off my back, great, more time, so good. Probably only about 5 or 6 months that I've been doing graphic design with you guys now, I reckon. Thank you. It's absolutely amazing.
I guess when this project popped up, like the reason we're doing this podcast is because it is LGBTQ+ History Month. You are very involved in the community on the Gold Coast, and I felt like I didn't know enough about it. And our marketing team kind of raised that we wanted to do something in terms of awareness and support. We have lots of people in this business, in this community, and we want to tell their story, share their words of wisdom, literally educate everybody, educate our followers, educate our fans, educate our staff,
and just show that support and everything as well.
We want to. There's a lot of history behind it, and being History Month, we want to sell the story. We want people to know why it is the way it is, and why it was so hard, and why there's still such a long way to go.
Oh yeah, Well, as soon as I sort of heard about the fact that we were going to do something for LGBTQ+ History Month, and that I got to design this custom label, I was like, amazing! I already know what I want to do. I already know where I want my inspiration to come from. And it's just so important having something like this out there, and especially because we do have so many people within this company even that are a part of the community. It's rather than like feeling stressed about like, oh my god, like this whole pressure's on, I was like, I'm so excited about this. Like all I ever wanted to do is something creative that can help facilitate change, and the fact that this is out there, and it's just amazing.
Because this project wasn't just like when we sat down, we're like, yeah, let's do a label. That was never the intention, was to do a label. The intention was to do a campaign and literally make change.
Yeah, definitely. Rather than just like rainbow washing things and being like, hi gay, sashay into a deal today. Yay, buy our stuff. It's got a rainbow on it. Woohoo. No, we wanted it to actually educate and bring awareness to the community and everything. and have some actual like thought and care put behind it. And yeah, I'm so stoked that this is out there. Even like the back of the bottle has a little bit of information and a QR code that sort of prompts to like a video where I explain it a little bit, which is kind of fun. And yeah, and just the whole thing really prompts people to stand up, be proud, sort of do your own little bit of research and everything. And most importantly, it puts that label out there and sort of helps spark conversations, which is just so important.
Why is this month so important, I guess, to you personally?
Well, LGBTQ plus History Month is just, it's so important because you can't like forget your history. You can't forget how we got to where we are, because if you don't look at history, you're not going to progress. And it's so important to listen to queer voices and celebrate them and uplift them and everything like that, and especially those that have come before us. With this label, I really wanted to highlight that a lot of the inspiration came from the sort of late 1960s, early 1970s, because that's where you got the Stonewall Riots, which was an event that was such a catalyst for the queer rights movement and everything. While there were other protests and stuff before it, the Stonewall Riot was such a massive one, because police raided the Stonewall Inn, which was such a safe space for queer people. Back when it was like illegal to be gay, it was you could be arrested just for being in drag.
Literally, most people don't understand that. There's like, in a lot of countries, and still to this day in a lot of countries, like it's a stonable, illegal,
insane,
arrestable, like it's an offense. Like,
well, even in Queensland, it was illegal to be gay in 1990, 31 years ago. And Tasmania only decriminalized it in 1997 as well, which is just so strange to think about. Like, it's insane that that's happened. And like in Australia, that little time ago.
And different rules. Like you were telling me before, like the consent age was 18 for queers, but straight people, the consent age was 16. Like who gets to decide that there's two sets of rules for
it's like,
just
because you like that kind of like people, just because you like the same people, like same gender as you, like, oh no, you've got to wait a couple of years.
You have a different rule to everybody else.
It's so ridiculous. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, it's things like that it's so important to remember and learn about. And I think through learning and educating and looking at history and raising those voices, that's how you create change. Like I feel like a lot of discrimination and stuff can come from misunderstanding.
There's this part of me, and my cousin texted me the other day because she listened to the podcast with Chris last week, and she's like, "Thanks for talking about me on your podcast." And I was like, "At least you listened." She's like, I think she's like 18 or 21 however old she is. She's like, but she's like sassy and like she knows she's queer, but I don't think she knows the history because there's a lot of, obviously all of that history. Shout out to you, Taylor. If you listen, hopefully you listen to this episode.
Yeah, Taylor.
But there's a lot of history in behind why it is a little bit easier for her in coming out and being able to, express herself how she wants to express it and all those kind of things. And it kind of feels because they don't teach you that shit in school. There's no,
and they should.
There's none of that history is taught by anyone. Like it's kind of suppressed. All that history is like, and unless you
Except
go
for
and
Scotland,
do
shout out to Scotland.
You have to go and do your own research. You have to rely on people for other information. There's no one out there literally just educating. I've seen some Instagram pages that you've shared with me and some Facebook stuff, and they're all doing a really good job at doing it. But there's nothing that's part of the system that educates these people into why they are the way they are and that it's okay to be that way.
Yeah, well, that's why like representation and good representation is so goddamn important. Hell, the fact that Sex Education, very, very popular TV show at the moment, that shows like so many different parts of the spectrum, which is so incredible. And seeing that, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a good step in the right direction. This is like popular media that shows, different, because I feel like a lot of queer representation in media, it's either the whole like, oh my God, I'm gay and I'm fabulous and so extra and blah, 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 blah. But you can you don't have to be that big singing la-di-da. Like you can be who you are, and you don't have to fit into a certain stereotype. And it shows all those different, it is a spectrum, and it's great. It's so awesome to see, and just teaching kids as well, and having those conversations and stuff. It brings it into the public eye, and that's another reason why I'm so excited about this. Is like just having that really positive, queer representation out in the public eye helps to slowly normalize it, and helps people to slowly feel like they can be who they are in public, like openly and freely.
Because when you, like, we'll go into a little bit about the inspiration, but the kind of was, the bigger picture wasn't just a label. Like, it was posters, it was the label, it was videos, it was Instagram, Facebook posts, it was LinkedIn posts. Like, as wide as we would go for a product launch was as wide as we wanted to go for this, including down to like things like the badges, which have significant representation of, back in the day, like people used to wear a badge that would say I'm transgender, I'm queer.
Yeah, it was like the little flags or the pink triangle.
Yeah, there's loads of badges, and there's actually a lot of really funny saying ones. Like
there's
really
some
cool,
great
like,
ones.
some like back from like the 70s and 80s and those kind of things, some really cool ones.
Yeah.
But we did badges, and we're sending them out in every order, and a flyer that goes into every single order that has the QR code. It has the video of you explaining to it.
And it even explains a bit about LGBTQ plus History Month, the fact that the inspiration for this label came from the 60s, 70s, and especially sort of focusing on the Stonewall riots. Like, I put the flowers in there almost as a little bit of an ode to Marsha P. Johnson, who was one of the drag queens at the Stonewall riots and one of the most well-known faces of it. And she was just incredible. So I've also put the transgender flag on the
woman of color as well. And we're talking about it just before that, like the drag queens that are women of color are still probably the most oppressed out of the whole community. But she was there in the beginning. Like, she's been there, Marsha P. Johnson was there day dot when all this stuff started turning and trying to make change.
Yeah, trans people of color and queer people of color have been there. Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, they were some of the biggest faces of the Stonewall riots. And trans people of color and queer people of color are the most sort of oppressed out of everything. And I think you can't have full freedom until you have freedom for everybody.
True.
And like, it's really funny when people are like, oh, well, you know, you've got gay marriage now, so why do you need a pride parade? And I'm like, no, there's literally still so much misunderstanding and so much that still needs to be done. Even 3 weeks ago, I kind of got into an internet argument with someone who, because there was a proposal for a ban on conversion therapy in New Zealand, and anyone could sort of submit a statement and be like, fuck yeah, ban conversion therapy. So I put it up on my story and I was like, please submit a statement. Let's get loads of support for this. We want to get rid of it. It's a terrible, terrible, really awful thing. And someone replied to me and they were like, no, but these people need help. And I was like, what do you mean?
For people who don't understand what conversion therapy is, it's basically a therapy that exists to convert queer people back to straight people, or what is considered the norm. And a lot of the time these people's families send them, or like they're peer pressured into going to these things, or they're not comfortable in themselves and be like, oh, why do I feel this way? I don't want to feel this way because I don't have anyone to talk about it with, or any of those kind of things.
Yeah. But that was the weirdest thing, was like this conversation. This guy was like, oh, being gay is a choice, and these people need to seek conversion therapy to make them choose the right path of being straight. And I was like, what are you on about? This is mad. He was like, yeah, being gay is a choice. And I'm like, I boggles my mind that like a 30-year-old in Australia still thinks that being gay is a choice. It's like, no, you don't choose who you love. You just fall in love.
Or you can choose to be a good person. You make a choice every day when you wake up.
Yeah.
He chose.
Yeah, but even then, like,
he chose the not good choice.
Yeah. But what was weird was like, I was actually sort of telling that story about getting into a bit of an argument and being like, oh my God, this guy thinks that it's a choice. And I was telling the story to someone who was actually talking about the label and was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I have so many people in my family that are queer. This is awesome. Love this is out there. So not a homophobic bone in this person's body. And I was telling the story and they were like, oh, but it is a choice, right? And I was like, oh, honey, no. But yeah, no, like not even coming from a bad place, but just
it's like
didn't understand.
I think that's the hardest, what people don't understand. It's an emotion. It's a connection. It's you fall in love with who you want to fall in love with. You fall in love with people's personalities. It's like you don't walk around being like, oh, I'm in love with that girl. I'm in love with that girl. I'm in love with that girl. Like you can walk around and do that from a physical aspect. But when you talk to somebody, there's either there's a connection there or not.
Exactly.
And that's where it becomes not a choice, because you fall in love with that person's personality and who they are and the way they act and the way they make you feel as a person, not from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of the time. No, I feel like 98% of the time.
Yeah, but yeah, it's so strange to think about that, and that understanding and sort of just helping people understand that and go and trying to tell the other side of the story and be like, okay, well, imagine if you were in love with someone and everyone was like, no, that's wrong. Like, no, you can't do that. Yeah. Like, that's not on. Like, Jessie, one of our brand ambassadors in Sydney, told me this amazing story, which we'll be sharing on our socials, where because she's been a bartender sort of all across the world. And she was like, yeah, I've heard so many stories, and once had this regular in at her bar all the time, like every single day he'd come in, drink beers, would always complain about the world and everything, and on this one particular night was being quite homophobic, and she decided to stand up and go, hang on, that's not on, and sort of realized that he just didn't understand, tried to sort of calm down, explain it to him. I think it ended up in a bit of an argument and he went away, didn't come back for 2 weeks, but then he came back with his son who's gay and was like, you helped me to understand and put my feet in his shoes and go, oh my God, it would have been so shit to have a dad that didn't understand
the way
that
I was acting.
He just, like you love who you love. Love is love. And yeah, just like it's those little things. It can be one comment that literally changes someone's world or the world.
What's your, like, I know a little bit about your personal journey, but there's like, I want to share your story because you're an import to Australia here.
Pommy.
we imported you to do graphic design. You're a pommy. Yeah. But what's your story? Because you obviously, you grew up in the UK.
Yeah.
And you came out pretty early on.
Yeah.
Like when you were in high school?
Yeah, I think I was about sort of 13, 14 when I was like, hi, I'm here, I'm queer, woo. But yeah, weirdly enough, I guess talking about the whole, you just fall for people. I didn't realize that I was bi, I guess. And the first person I came out to was technically my high school bully. Because we were waiting to go into drama class and she was just saying some homophobic shit and I was like, no, hang on, that's not on. You love who you love. Like if I fell for someone that was a guy, I'd fall for someone that was a guy. If I fell for someone that was a girl, I'd fall for someone that was a girl. If I fell for someone that was somewhere in between or outside those genders, that's who I fall in love with. And I was like, what the hell? That doesn't make sense. It wasn't until a full year later that I was scrolling through Tumblr. Ooh, that nerd. And
Tumblr was sick, by the way.
Bruh. I had a Doctor Who fan page. But yeah, it was so funny. I was scrolling through Tumblr and I saw a post that had LGBTQ plus definitions, and I saw one for bisexual, one for pansexual, and I looked at pansexual and I was like, oh, that's me. And that was kind of me going, I thought everyone was somewhere on the spectrum, I guess. Like I thought everyone was at least a little bit curious. And yeah, I was like, oh, okay, not everyone. And that's sort of when I went, okay, cool. So that's my identity. That's where I fit, and that's what have always felt like. It's never been a question. And then I cut all my hair off, and just really sort of went into that very exploratory route. I started wearing like men's shirts with bow ties and a skirt and Doc Martens, and I thought I was really fashionable. And then coming out to my mum was probably the funniest thing, because I think we were on the way to the movies, and she was like, that actress, she's pretty good looking, eh? I was like, yeah, she's pretty cute. She was like, do you like women? I was like, yeah. She was like, do you like men too? I was like, yeah. She's like, oh yeah, cool, same. And I was like, oh, sick. Like, it was so easy. I came out to my mum and she came out to me as like, as queer all in one car journey.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, and then through sort of figuring that out and being open about it.
How old was your mum at that time?
Sorry?
How old was your mum at that time?
Because
that's like a long time for her to.
Like, I don't think she ever really hid it. She just didn't really mention it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she would have been maybe 30 something.
That's cool though. Like to be able to have somebody that, because most people don't have anybody to go through that with, especially from a like. I feel like for some reason parents feel like it's a blow to their ego or the way they raise their kid or something. Like, but it's got absolutely nothing to do with that. It's, as we've said, it's just a feeling, and it's a born this way, right?
Yeah. Well, I was super, super lucky to have a very accepting and loving family that were like, yeah, you know, we really don't care. We're just happy for you and want you to be happy, which was really great. And not everyone can say that. My best friend back at home is trans and unfortunately didn't have as supportive a parent, and that really sucked for him. But yeah, it's like, it was really interesting because I had a really great group of friends back in England. We all sort of started coming out left, right, and center. Like, yeah, it was like, hi, I'm gay, I'm bi, I'm this, I'm that. Like, it was awesome. And no one really, we all kind of explored together and just were really open about everything. And then moving to Australia, like, this was like the same summer.
Yeah.
So we all kind of came out and I was like, oh, this is great. Oh, I'm surrounded by amazing people. I went to my first Pride parade, had the best time of my life, moved to Australia, and just found it was such a different world over here in a way. Like, it was obviously still like kind of accepting, but it was very don't ask, don't tell, which was just so strange to me, from going to a very like open, like, yeah, cool, this is great.
Did you move to the Gold Coast?
Yeah, Gold Coast. Yeah. And I went to a private school for a couple years.
Big difference between
it was so weird,
the representation on the Gold Coast versus say Sydney or Melbourne. In like built up areas, it's a bit more. Gold Coast is very country town. Like, and what would have been when you moved here.
Yeah, because this would have been about 7 years ago now.
Yeah, so a little bit not as advanced as not as culturally advanced as we are now in the art scene, the music scene, all the scenes that kind of the queer people make up like a huge proportion, because they fucking don't give a shit. Like, they do such cool stuff.
Yeah, even like, just the last 7 years watching it progress has been awesome. Yeah, I think even Chris mentioned that it sort of was so different a couple of years ago, and now he's paving the way with stuff like the drag bingo and flamboyance and everything like that. We've now got a gay bar on the Gold Coast, which is great, and it's definitely a lot more accepting. And hell, like, when I was in school over here, like, or even back in England, you could still be bullied for being queer.
Yeah.
Whereas now, what's awesome is that, like, if someone, like, my sister was telling me about this kid that was trying to bully someone that's queer, and everyone else turned around and was like, "Stop being a dick, man!"
So
like,
everyone has turned on him. It's the best.
Yeah. And so it's great that that Gen Z is really so open-minded and supportive of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's kind of the funny thing as well, is like, a lot of people are like, oh, the world's getting gayer. It's like, no, it's just becoming a bit more of a safer space for us to be open, and that's as it should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really, it's great to see that progression, especially when you learn about things like Stonewall riots and stuff like that, when police would just raid these gay bars constantly. That police would even like in Australia and everything, they would sort of like pose as queer men just to arrest people for being gay.
Wow.
Insane. But yeah, and then now we're here, and it's so great to see the progression there. Like, obviously there's still a long way to go, especially with the different sort of gender things. I feel like a lot of people don't quite understand that quite as much.
I think that's the number one thing that I was, when you did up the list of different things, like, LGBTQ, like, but there's so, like, the whole pansexual thing, like, and they've put all these names to all these different things, kind of to help people, like, that are kind of, want to know what they are. They want to, like, some sort of, I like this, but I like that, and I like, kind of help them identify themselves and be like, okay, that's me, I'm okay with it, or whatever it is. but there's so many literally labels on labels where it like, I kind of feel like we should be moving to a point where it's like, you like what you like. And
I think it's still important
people need to
have your identity.
Understand. Yeah.
And be proud of that, and sort of like you don't want to chuck labels on people and try and put everyone in like a box and go, no, you stay in that box. Stay in the box.
Exactly like, what I was kind of getting at,
like
you're a lesbian, you're bisexual, you're gay, you're this, you're, putting people in a box, but then not understanding what the other ones mean or.
Yeah. And I mean, what's great is that like, for all of our wholesale accounts that have bought this label, that LGBTQ plus definitions poster that we've got going up around the office, and going out in orders.
I think it's on our website on the blog posts and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. And I think knowing those definitions, it helps understanding. And when you have a more understanding society, then you have a more accepting society, I feel. And yeah, like a lot of people, a lot of the questions I get nowadays, I guess. Nowadays, I don't know. But yeah, I think everyone's got the whole like, okay, cool, yeah, lesbian, gay, bi, got that down pat, know what that is. But then when it comes into like
that there's nobody
non-binary, genderqueer, people are like, oh, what does that mean, and how do I sort of understand that? I've even sort of been questioning sort of my gender a little bit, and that's fine. Being exploratory and questioning is so fine and so natural and should be.
This is the when we talked about it the other day, and you were like, I'm queer, but I'm in a straight relationship.
Yeah.
And like, if you told that to somebody who was homophobic or like, that would blow their mind. Do you know what I mean?
I guess that's an interesting point actually, is even sort of being bi, you kind of get that like, part of me feels, oh, okay, I'm lucky because I can be straight passing, therefore I am less likely to be a subject of abuse or like something like that. But at the same time, I almost until 3 weeks ago when I was talking to someone in this company, I almost felt weird about it, I guess, because a lot of bi-erasure can happen, and bi-erasure is when you kind of erase the identity of being bi. So like Freddie Mercury, most people are like, oh yeah, a really famous gay man. No, he was bi.
Yeah.
And when you're bisexual, sometimes people will, if you're seeing a guy, then they're like, oh, you're straight. If you're seeing a girl, then oh, you're gay. But it's like, no, I'm bi all the time, no matter who I'm dating. And yeah, I kind of struggled with that sometimes. It was the whole like, oh, do I look gay enough? Do I like talk about it enough? I still want to be a part of this community and feel like I should be. And then I was talking to someone that was a part of this, that is a part of the community in this company, and she was like, yeah, but like just because you're in a like straight passing relationship, that doesn't mean that your queerness isn't still valid. And I've been out since I was like 14, 15. And it wasn't until 3 weeks ago that I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like, okay, no, I do actually feel a bit more valid in this, even though I'm seeing a guy right now. I'm still queer, and that's fine. And I always will be. And yeah, so I feel like that can sometimes be a bit of a struggle.
Playing your mind a little bit and playing your like everyone has head noise, I guess.
Of
like
course.
everyone has their head
very
noise.
much so, yeah.
But just doesn't just compounds a little bit faster and harder.
This episode is sponsored by our production team. They're working around the clock using the freshest ingredients to make our delicious cocktail mixes for you guys to enjoy. Now back to the episode.
What would you say has been the biggest inspiration behind your personal authenticity and being comfortable with who you are? Like we just even had that, like a bit of that conversation then of like 3 weeks ago you had that that inner feeling of like, oh, am I not? Like that's just with yourself, and still somebody saying that to you was like, oh yeah, I feel relieved at some sort of relief from having that conversation.
Yeah.
But is there anyone that you've kind of had to help you, or to like who's been there for you as a person?
Well, I think just having grown up in a very accepting family and being around friends that were very accepting and like in a more open sort of world, which was great for me. It sort of gave me that space to explore and try and understand myself. And yeah, seeing those sort of definitions on Tumblr and being like, oh, that's me, that's who I am. And rather than being stifled by that or anything. I literally just clung onto it and I was like, heck yeah, I'm going to be so proud of this. I think understanding the definition of it helped me to explore it a bit more and really understand myself a little bit more, doing a lot of like soul searching with it and everything. It's like even
you're actually still pretty young. Like
yeah, I'm 23.
I'm 33, so I've got 10 years.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I've been through the whole like, oh my God, do I even like men? Am I faking it? Like, like, do I just like women? And then there's also been phases of like, oh, do I not like anyone? Like, am I just romantically attracted to people? And you can still like I'm very solid now in the like, no, I'm pansexual, I'm bisexual, and like I like to use the label queer, because it's a good umbrella term for me, and I'm happy with that. But yeah, experimenting and always questioning is something so fine. Like even within sort of gender, I've sort of had days where I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like maybe I completely subscribe to being a female. But then again, just taking the time to really think about it and sort of search it and go, oh no, hang on. I like, for me personally, I get to go, okay, well, my definition of female fits for this. And and so that's why I sort of became comfortable and like, no, okay, I'm happy with who I am. But then other people, it's like, oh, well, my definition doesn't fit into any of those. So the way that I express myself and identify can fit outside of that. So like non-binary or genderqueer or gender fluid and stuff like that. Especially when I cut my, like, I really miss having short hair. The euphoria that I got when people were like, is that a guy or a girl? I was like, yes, perfect. I love this. Thank you. Like, it gave me this real weird euphoria. And it's something I'm still sort of figuring out. But yeah, having a very open and supportive group around me really, it gave me the space to think about it and be open about it and talk to people. And that was so important. Even when I moved over here and was very open about myself being sort of bi, I was like, yeah, cool, I'm queer. I'm here, I'm queer, hello. Being open, I actually had a bunch of people come to me after school and be like, oh my God, like I love my boyfriend, but I kissed this girl and like, what am I feeling? What's happening? And
what is this?
Yeah. And so that's why I think having these conversations and being open and authentic helps so many people.
Honestly, I've worked in loads of different businesses, loads and loads, from corporate to not corporate, which is to hospitality. Like they're all very different ways of operating and kind of all different varying levels of acceptance of like hospitality is full of queer community.
It's so diverse.
Like it is so diverse in the I don't know, and the arts community. Like I've DJ'd all those kind of stuff, like DJ'd for a long period of time. Loads of talented queer people, like loads and loads. But then you go into corporate and it's kind of a little bit suppressed. You can't really, you can't really.
It's still maybe just as diverse, but it's definitely a lot more stifled.
Yeah, it's definitely like it feels like you can't, you can't express yourself in the way you dress or the way you conduct yourself in the workplace or whatever it is. You kind of, I feel like sometimes they feel like they have to tone it back a little bit in case somebody else is going to get offended. And that's the one thing we want to do as a business is you are who you are, how you want to be. It doesn't matter who you meet in our business. If you are a corporate partner or you are allowed to be who you are 100% of the time. Yeah. All the damn time.
Yeah. It's been so awesome coming into this company, and it's never been a question of like, oh, can I fully be myself, or like, is there anyone that wouldn't feel like they could fully be themselves? Because the community within this company is so open and accepting. Like you're a part of this company and you're awesome and we're happy to have you. And yeah, you guys, like, I come in with freaking flowers on my face and like and like big stomper boots, and no one's like, no, tone it down. Tone it down.
Like for me, to me it shows creativity, it shows who you are as a person, it shows personality and all those kind of things. So like when we walk into a meeting, I'm like, this is awesome. Like these people are gonna, like, they know all the work that we're putting out there and the people that are behind it legitimately care and are like that. Like it's not a facade. We're not out here spruiking beautiful cocktails and beautiful people and drinking and good times. That we are living that life and we operate that way, and
Yeah.
we celebrate that way as a team,
Yeah.
as a family, and as a business.
Definitely. No, it's really great. Even just sort of showing this label to everyone, especially because we've just hired so many new people. There's so many new faces around, and showing this label to people. There were so many awesome conversations that came after that. Yeah, and I think sharing your stories and having those conversations and everything is so fantastic and really shows progress and
Seeing
change.
people
And
put it on Instagram and stuff like
yeah,
it's so rad.
yeah,
Like,
it's amazing.
We've seen our same bottles on the gram for the longest period of time, and now people are picking these ones up and posting this, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and what's great about it as well is like, when we first sort of started with this label, you guys were like, we don't want to just chuck a rainbow on there and go, yay, pride.
That was that wasn't. Because I think the first couple of concepts were a little bit like that, and I was like, nah, let's go in on this thing. If we're going in hard, like I want you to come with like I want it to be all encompassing. I don't want it to just be put a rainbow on the label somewhere, or a rainbow behind the logo or something like everybody else does.
But yeah, what's great is that like even my meetings with you guys as the directors and everything, it was like, okay, cool, we've got this message out there, but how do we actually facilitate and make change? And
this is literally my last question.
Yeah.
Like, how as a community, like I'm going to turn this into a question, because how as a community do we stand up, stand out, and be proud? Because that was the goal of the campaign. That was literally that was our slogan. But how do we do it?
Yeah. So we've really gone with the message of stand up, be proud, and sharing stories like Jessie's story, where she stood up and sort of, even though she's not a part of the community, you don't have to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community to go and to stand up for people. And so like standing out and creating queer friendly spaces and listening to people's stories and experiences and uplifting voices, doing some research, finding out about queer history and where we've come and everything like that. It's really amazing. And then being proud of who you are and everything like that. We really, really wanted to push that message. And not just have a rainbow on the bottle. I mean, for me, originally I was like, oh my God, just having this out there. One, it's amazing because you see companies do stuff like this where you see like genuine care behind it and you go, oh my God, okay, that helps put it in the public eye and pave the way for, being able to reach that society where you can just authentically be yourself and it's fine.
Yeah.
And then I think I had a meeting with Jeremy and we were like, yeah, cool, this is the message, and we're like, representation is so important and creating that space of support. And he was like, we can do more. I was like, more you say? And he actually suggested the final thing that we're doing, which is absolutely massive. And so when you get this bottle, on the little booklet that has the information about it on the back page, we explain what we're doing, which is we'll be sending a letter to the Australian Treasury, as you know, and talking about the census that's just been and gone. And because on that census, there was no real representation for LGBTQ plus people. There was nothing about sexual orientation or gender identity.
I filled it out and I clearly remember and like, is this a census from the 90s or fucking what?
It's so weird. Yeah, like male, female. No. How about not that?
Yeah.
Do I get to check anything anywhere? But yeah, I feel like the census is something that helps the government to understand their population. How can you do that if you don't have that actual representation?
Honestly, after I filled it out, I was like, this isn't a true read on Australia in any way, shape or form. And I think I even told you that they send somebody around, they'd invested in people to come around if you haven't filled out your census form to chase you up for your census form.
Knock knock.
And if you don't fill out your census form, you get a fine. But they hadn't put enough effort and work into actually making sure that the census form could capture information.
Clearly represented the entire population.
Amen.
So we'll send a letter and say, hey, these people need to be seen and heard, because the census not only helps you understand the population, but also helps to make decisions in funding for education and healthcare and stuff like that. And it's especially education and healthcare and community groups and stuff like that. Those are so important for queer people.
And Netflix is doing a better job
than the Australian government,
than our government in terms of educating our teenagers on sex and like identity and all those kind of things. Pretty bloody scary.
Yeah. So one of the great things about this label is that we give everybody the chance within the company, whoever gets this label, whoever's following our socials.
You can submit your story, right?
You can submit your story, put a statement in, whether it's you sharing your story of who you are and why you're proud to be who you are, or why you think it's important to have representation in the census, just anything like that. We want to hear people's stories. We're going to add that to the letter and say, hey, look, these people deserve to be seen and heard. And hopefully that will change things and make differences. Like in Scotland, they've just made LGBTQ plus education a requirement in schools, and little things like changing the census and sort of going, oh, okay, this X amount of the population, like let's put funding into this and this and this. Hopefully one day we'll reach that too. Because, creating those safe spaces and that understanding history and everything like that, so important, especially for queer youth. So it's really, really awesome that we're doing this.
The one thing I had the thought the other day, I was talking to Chris about it. I can't remember whether it's in the podcast or not, but talking about like the badges, right? Like there's a symbol, like the badge is always symboled like you're safe with me, or like it gave people like an indication, like we talked about the black fingernail before, like a black
secret
fingernail.
ways.
Secret ways to communicate. But it's it feels nice that our bottle is a representation of this is a safe space for the queer community in our stockists, in out the bars that serve it, any of these places that stock it, like another form of letting people know that they're in a safe space and they're that we support you guys. And That was one thing I was like, I walked past a shop front the other day and it was in the shop window. I was like, that's so cool.
So exciting. Even just having like the little rainbow stickers on a shop window. Yeah. It kind of it really does make a difference. Like I feel like a lot of people might not think it does, but it really does, because knowing that those queer friendly spaces are out there, and just like putting it out there and being like, yep, cool, we're cool with everything. It helps normalize it, which is
absolutely
the dream.
That's a dream. Jessie, Red, Jess, thank you so
go by many names.
Thank you so much for coming in and giving us a rundown, a little bit more, educating us a little bit more on the history and I guess why the label exists and why we did it as a business, because it was a bloody massive project and there was a lot of key things and key targets we wanted to hit in the education space. And you guys in the marketing team have done an excellent job of making it happen, and we're very proud of this project. And I'm excited to see what we can do and change we can make and going forward. Yep. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
It's been amazing.
Let's have some muggies. That's today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, leave a review. Go show the Shake Up some love and stay connected. Don't forget you can watch all of our episodes on YouTube. Also, jump over to our Shake Up Cocktail Gang Facebook page where you can find out who's coming up on the podcast. And if you've got questions for them, I'll ask the bloody questions. You can also use the code SHAKEUP for 10% off on mrconsistent.com.au. Thank you so much for listening, and just remember, shit that's fresh.